Welcome back to Morning Joe. On this Friday morning, a live look at Capitol Hill at 47 past the hour. A senior FBI official who briefly served as acting director at the start of President Trump's current term has been fired with no explanation. That's according to two federal law enforcement sources. That official, Brian Driscoll, made headlines when he resisted a Justice Department directive to turn over a list of agents who had worked on January 6th cases. Let's bring in MSNBC Justice and Intelligence correspondent Ken Dilanian. Ken, what more do we know about this dismissal?
Good morning, Mika. This dismissal was actually part of a wave of firings of senior officials, including Steve Jensen, the head of the Washington field office, who was heavily involved in investigating the January 6th cases, and a man named Walter Giardina, who was involved in the investigation of Peter Navarro, that Trump advisor who went to prison for defying Congress. Giardina had just lost his wife to cancer a couple of weeks ago, and he was summarily fired. And this is a part of an ongoing purge that the Trump administration is conducting of FBI leadership. I posted a story earlier this week that noted that a large chunk of the special agents in charge across the country at field offices have been forced out of their jobs, and that those firings were disproportionately impacting women and minorities in those jobs. In this case, it's some senior white guys, but some pretty famous folks inside the Bureau. Brian Driscoll became something of a folk hero, as you mentioned, when he was named the acting director, accidentally, by the way. His name was put in the wrong place in a chart. And then he stood up to a plan by the Trump administration that seemed like it was poised to fire hundreds, if not thousands, of FBI agents who had worked on those January 6th cases. He resisted that. And yet he retained his job, and his continued employment in the Bureau, as well as with Jensen and some of these other people, provided a little bit of hope that it was possible to dissent from some aspect of Trump administration policy, or at least to push back and keep your job. Well, that day is over. The message has been sent very clearly, and morale inside the FBI, guys, is about as low as I've ever heard it described as I talk to people.
Let's move over to the Justice Department, Ken, which has hired a January 6th rioter who was captured on video calling law enforcement Nazis and yelling, quote, "kill them," during the 2021 Capitol insurrection. And NPR just uncovered that video. Take a look.
You guys are disgusting. I'm former law enforcement. You're disgusting. You are the Nazi. You are the Gestapo. You can't see it because you're chasing your pension, right? Your pension, your retirement, right? That's what runs your life, your retirement.
The sad thing is they're not even going to get their pension because it's going to be worthless.
And shame on you. Shame on you. Shame on you. Yeah.
All right, that is former January 6th defendant Jared Wise. He was not convicted of any crimes related to January 6th following President Trump's order to end all Capitol riot prosecutions. NPR reports that Wise is now working as a senior advisor for the DOJ, though his exact role at the department remains unclear. A DOJ spokesperson released this statement to NPR, quote, "Jared Wise is a valued member of the Justice Department, and we appreciate his contributions to our team." Wise had previously served at the FBI from 2004 to 2017, where he worked on international counterterrorism and eventually became a supervisory special agent. Joe, where do we begin here?
Well, I mean, according to the NPR report and the video, now have somebody that's inside the most important law enforcement agency in America, talking about, do I have it right, Ken? Kill cops? Is that the language? Kill them? I mean, saying that, calling police officers that were trying to protect people's safety, and government buildings, calling them Nazis and the Gestapo. This is very bizarre coming from a political party holding up such a person that's calling for the killing of cops. Very bizarre that he's working in the preeminent law enforcement agency in America for a president and a party who claim to be supporting law enforcement officers and claiming it's the liberals that don't support law enforcement officers. What can you tell us about this? This person who, at really the most heated time on January the 6th, was calling for the killing of law enforcement officers.
Yes, it's mind-boggling, Joe. I will say that Mr. Wise did express contrition for those comments during his trial, which was cut short when Donald Trump ended all the prosecutions of January 6th defendants and pardoned them all. But I think what we're seeing here is the consequences of an administration that has rewritten history. It's rewritten the history of January 6th. And as Donald Trump pardoned all the defendants, including those who assaulted police officers, and is now going about firing FBI agents who worked on those cases and FBI supervisors, and then hiring people who were part of the riot. And, to your point, Joe, I suspect if you polled most Americans, even most Republicans, they're not necessarily on board with this. This is a small fraction of the MAGA movement that is under these incredible delusions about the fact that there was no violence or that somehow the January 6th riot was justified. But Donald Trump doesn't care. Those are the people that are empowered in his administration, the people that believe that way, the people that believe that the FBI was part of a corrupt deep state. In fact, the men leading the FBI have expressed those beliefs for years. So regardless of what percentage of the population or even the Republican Party actually believes this or cares about it, these are the animating features of the Trump administration. They have rewritten history, and they have co-opted the Justice Department and the FBI as tools of their political ends, and they're going about purging people who have beliefs that they don't like, and they're hiring people that you would not expect, and this is a great example of that.
Ken, as you say, the early second term here move by President Trump to empty the prisons of January 6 convicts, people who attacked police, attacked the Capitol building, was an early indicator of how this second term was going to go for President Trump. You talked a little bit about morale inside the FBI, and we talk about somebody like Brian Driscoll, almost a 20-year veteran, a respected guy within the FBI, had held some major posts, hostage rescue, things like that. For him to be dismissed effectively because he wouldn't turn over a list of agents who worked on these cases around January 6th, with, as you say, anyone who's honest with him or herself or has a pair of eyes knows was a terrible day where criminal acts were performed. What is it like to be a career FBI agent, a career FBI official right now, or in the Justice Department for that matter?
There is a climate of fear, Willie. I'll say that Driscoll actually survived resisting turning over the list. He was fired because he refused to fire one of his subordinates, an FBI agent who is a pilot who was flying Kash Patel around in the FBI jet, but had previously worked on the Mar-a-Lago investigation. And Driscoll stood up to the idea that that man should be fired. Now Driscoll's been fired, and that agent was also fired, according to our reporting. But to your larger point, morale is in the toilet. And there is a climate of fear where, for example, one of my sources is a special agent out in a field office somewhere, and mentioned that a new special agent in charge came to talk to employees. And this agent had a good reputation as a long-time career FBI official. But this new supervisor, every other word out of his mouth, every other sentence was effusive and obsequious praise for Kash Patel and Dan Bongino. And my source said he was just so disgusted, and it felt to him like in North Korea. He just thought that this man was debasing himself, and that this is what it had come to inside the FBI, that you have to do those kinds of things to preserve your viability. So not only are people being fired, people who have the ability to retire are retiring. People are leaving for other jobs. And so decades of counterterrorism, counterintelligence, white-collar fraud experience is walking out of that building, and that will take a generation to rebuild, guys.
MSNBC Justice and Intelligence correspondent Ken Dilanian, thank you very much.